So blacks have to work twice as hard. Have more racist rhetoric coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, blacks have to work twice as hard is basically an example of fictitious notion. Again, a bunch of nonsense that black folks believe that's just simply not true. And this is commonly believed by a lot of these black victims. It'll be said from time to time, if you start to press them on victimhood and their oppression, and they start throwing around a whole bunch of racist rhetoric, inevitably you're going to run into this ridiculous notion that blacks have to work twice as hard. Now, it's just, I guess, it's part of the whole white supremacy, that narrative that white supremacy is making it harder for black people. But my question about this is how? How exactly are black people having to work twice as hard to achieve the same thing as a white person? I mean, so you tell me that black people have to, GPA has to be twice as better as white people. They have to have a twice as high score or SAT scores and ACT scores as white people to get in college. Well, no, that's not the case, because blacks can get in college with less academic output, a lower GPA, and a lower SAT score, the ACT score. So, in the case of getting in college, it's the exact opposite. Right? So what about sports? Do black people have to work twice as hard to get in sports? No. They judge based upon the same criteria. And they put the best athletes out there, and black folks have shown, in America at least, to be the best athletes. Mostly because of selective breeding. But blacks don't have to work twice as hard when it comes down to sport. Well, what about your credit score? Getting loans and things. Does a black person have to have a credit score that's twice as good as a white person? No. Everybody in America is judged on the same criteria and the same rating scale. So, how exactly then are black people having to work harder then? Like, what did you tell me that, again, a black person who wants to be a doctor, their grades have to be twice as better than the white people? They have to go to school for twice as longer to get their degree? I mean, what do they mean by have to work twice as hard? They don't. It's absolute nonsense. And this is just more of that nonsense, that's just that victimhood that's just in black people's head. They hear this nonsense repeated by the race officers, and they just regurgitate it. And that's all it is just regurgitated nonsense, just to make themselves to be victims in America. Now, I will say this, in some circumstances, white folks may have a better situation than black people. On average, a white person might probably have better access to more resources and things. A typical white person, on average, probably, inherit, maybe more likely to inherit money from the passing of family members, parents, grandparents, such like that. And a typical white person probably has more knowledge of how things work, and as far as financing goes, they're probably more educated on loans and interest rate and how to invest your money, pathways to certain occupations. But that's only because they grew up, more than likely to grow up around these people. But that's not because of white supremacy and racism. And the reason why blacks are not in the same circumstance is because black folks choose not to do the things and put themselves in a circumstance. So in that regard, that's not white supremacy. That's black inferiority. Again, there's nothing stopping black people from doing anything that any other white person in America is doing. It's just that black people as a whole, is just too much ghetto ratchet nonsense amongst blacks. The ghetto mentality is too extensive amongst black people. And that ghetto mentality is what's the problem, not white supremacy. So, and if they say this nonsense about having to work harder, but from what I've seen, anything that black folks have to work harder than white people is what we do to ourselves. And perhaps maybe we just need to stop doing it, starting with the victimhood. Anyway, black people don't have to work twice as hard as anybody else in the United States of America. So if you ever hear any of these race hustlers say that nonsense, well, now you know And let's have the battle. And as always, y'all, until next time.